You ever notice how silence is louder when you're alone with it? Not the peaceful kind either. No, I'm talking about that thick, choking kind of silence that swallows the walls of your house after the truths come barreling through like a wrecking ball. That's what I sat in, the day my wife told me our daughter, I'd thought, wanted her real father to walk her down the aisle. I don't remember dropping the glass, but I remember the sound, like the final tick of a clock before it gives out. Let me back up. Her name was Lily, 7 years old when I met her. Missing a front tooth, clutched a tattered stuffed elephant like it held the universe together. Her mother, Janine, was freshly divorced. Wore her independence like armor, sharp, polished, and heavy. She told me on our second date, "I'm not looking for a dad for my kid. Just so you know." I nodded. She didn't know what I knew. See, I grew up in a house with a man who walked out and never looked back. So when I saw that little girl with her wide eyes and guarded heart, I saw a chance to do something right. Fast forward 10 years. Homework help, soccer practices, dance recitals, every school fundraiser, every scraped knee, every dad, can I was there. Maybe not by blood, but by sweat, tears, and damn near every paycheck. I paid for her braces, her first car, her dream school. Even when Janine's ex vanished, no calls, no birthday cards, I stayed. Because I thought love wasn't DNA. It was presence. Then came the wedding. It was a Tuesday when Janine said it. Casual, like she was commenting on the weather while chopping onions. Lily wants her real father to walk her down the aisle. I blinked. The what now? She didn't meet my eyes. Just kept dicing onions like nothing she said had just carved through me like a knife. She feels like it would be meaningful, Janine added. Closure, you know? I stared at her. This woman I'd built a life with, who I'd stood by through layoffs, family illnesses, nights when neither of us knew how we'd pay the mortgage. This woman who watched me braid Lily's hair before picture day and let me believe for years that I was enough. And now? Some ghost of a man who hadn't paid a dime or lifted a finger gets the honor. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't say a single word. I just stood, walked out, and closed the door behind me. I didn't go to the wedding. Let him take that walk. Let him smile in the photos. Let them have their picture-perfect moment. Because when the music stopped and the cake went stale, and life started showing its teeth again, I was gone. And when it all fell apart, because of course it did, their calls went unanswered. The silence had already answered for me. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for the first call to come in. Hey, it's Janine. We need to talk. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the red button. The audacity. It had been 21 days since I walked out of that house, my house, the one I rebuilt with my own hands after that hailstorm wrecked the roof. I hadn't heard a word since. Not a call, not a text. Not even a, "Are you okay?" after I left the dinner table like a ghost. But now? Now she had the nerve to call because her golden little event had tarnished. Decline. Lily tried 2 days later. She left a voicemail. "Hi. I know you're probably mad. I get it. I didn't handle things right. But I miss you. I really do." It sounded rehearsed, like someone had told her to say it. Maybe Janine. Maybe even the man who strolled her down the aisle in the tux I paid for. I didn't listen to the rest. Let me tell you something about betrayal. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper in the form of a choice. A small one. One that says, "You matter less than you thought." That's what her decision was. Not a declaration of love for her real father, but a quiet, cutting announcement that I was always the fill-in. And now that their moment in the sun had clouded over, now I was supposed to what? Come back? Be the emotional janitor and sweep up the pieces? Let me rewind to show you the kind of man I was before all this. Lily's 11th birthday. Her father was supposed to call. Said he'd send something. She waited on the front step all day. Box of cupcakes in her lap. Every time a car drove by, her head whipped toward it. He never called. Never sent a card. You know who sat with her when the tears came? Me. You know who went out that night and bought her a telescope because she'd once said she liked stars? Me. She looked through it and whispered, "Thanks, Dad." That was the first time she called me that. And it wrecked me in the best possible way. So don't ask me to just forget that because 5 weeks ago she decided to chase some fairy tale closure with a guy who couldn't even spell commitment. I heard through a mutual friend that the real father got drunk at the reception and nearly started a fight with the groom. Class act. Real proud moment for the father of the bride. Meanwhile, I sat on a beach 2 states away. No tie. No speeches. Just a notebook and a flask and the sound of waves smacking against the rocks like applause for a man who finally chose himself. I'd been writing. Pages and pages. Not letters. Not pleas. Just truth. Raw. Unfiltered. Unpolished. Some might call it petty. I call it peace. One thing I've learned since walking away, being the bigger man doesn't mean being the doormat. You can forgive yourself for loving too hard, forgiving too much. But that doesn't mean you owe them your return. No, the real dignity is in letting the silence speak. Let it echo in that house. Let it sit heavy at the dinner table where I used to be. Let it show up in framed wedding photos that should have had me in them. Their fairy tale didn't need me? Then let their reality learn to live without me too. You ever watch a house rot from the inside? It doesn't start with a crash. No drama. Just a slow leak somewhere behind the walls, moisture creeping, wood warping, the silent dismantling of what once looked solid. That's what happened after I left. From the outside, Janine's life probably looked intact. The wedding pictures still up on social media, champagne smiles frozen in time. Her daughter's new last name carefully tagged, the perfect hashtag crafted months in advance, hashtag Lily Ann Connor forever. But the cracks were already spidering through. I didn't need to be there to see it. I had people. Mutuals. Neighbors. Folks who didn't know which side to pick, but still picked up the phone. Just wanted you to hear it from me, one of them said. The guy, her bio dad, didn't last the night. Got into it with Connor's uncle at the reception. Embarrassed Lily. Word is she left early. I almost laughed. But it wasn't funny. It was tragic in a poetic, slow-motion train wreck kind of way. Janine tried to text again a few days later. Something hollow. You know I never meant to hurt you. It sat unread for hours before I finally deleted it. Not because it wasn't tempting to respond, but because there was nothing left to say. What do you tell someone who watched you build a cathedral with your bare hands and then handed the keys to a guy who showed up with a match? Instead, I focused on my own repairs. I moved into a cabin about 45 minutes from the city. Bought it with the last chunk of savings I hadn't funneled into wedding deposits or tuition bills. It was nothing flashy, small, quiet, backed up to a patch of woods that turned golden in the fall. A place without memories, without echoes. Every morning, I'd wake up and breathe. No footsteps down the hall. No muffled arguments. Just silence. And peace. It was around this time I started talking to myself. Not out loud, not crazy, just little mental check-ins. I'd look in the mirror and ask, would you let someone walk over you again today? The answer came quicker each time, not a damn chance. Because here's the thing. When you give and give, they don't see your sacrifice, they see your ceiling. They start to believe that no matter how much they take, you'll never leave. That you're safe in the worst way, predictable, permanent, replaceable. Until you're not. One of Janine's friends, Leah, from her old book club, ran into me at the gas station. She did that awkward pause, like she wasn't sure if I'd spit on the pavement or hug her. I did neither. She looked at me and said, I thought you were crazy for walking away. But now? I think you were the only sane one in the room. I nodded. Takes some people longer to hear the truth over the noise. She didn't disagree. Apparently, Lily and Connor were already fighting. Something about money. Her dad, the real one, the guest of honor, had promised to help with their honeymoon expenses, then ghosted. Old habits. Lily had applied for a second credit card. Janine had co-signed. And from what I heard, the card was already maxed. That's the thing about fantasy, it's expensive. And reality? Reality charges interest. The irony of it all? I would have paid for the honeymoon. Happily. Had it all planned out before they told me to step aside. Bora Bora. Ocean bungalows. I had the reservation saved in my inbox. Cancelled it the same night I left. Got a partial refund. Used it to buy a damn good recliner and a bottle of 18-year-old scotch. I sit in that recliner now when the air gets cold and the cabin creaks and the fire crackles low. And I let myself feel everything I buried for a decade. But I don't cry. I let the fire burn through it for me. The first time I heard her voice again, I almost didn't recognize it. It was 3 months after the wedding debacle. A voicemail, short and shaky. Hi, it's Lily. I don't know if this number still works. I really need to talk. I played it twice. Her tone had changed. Gone was the bright, breathy entitlement that used to follow her around like perfume. Now, it cracked in places, like someone trying to hold something heavy and dropping it anyway. Still, I didn't call back. I knew better. Pain has a way of reshaping people's voices. But it doesn't always mean they've changed, just that they're hurting. And sometimes, when people hurt, they remember the ones they threw away. That week, she tried again. Texted this time. Mom said you're doing okay. That's good. I'm not. Can we talk? Please. She wanted my time, my presence, my comfort. The same girl who stood in a white dress and handed the honor of fatherhood to a man who couldn't spell commitment now wanted to sit down and catch up. I scrolled up in my phone history to an old photo. Father's Day, 2 years back. She'd surprised me with a card that read, "You're not the man who made me, but you made me who I am." A lie in retrospect, though I'm not sure she meant it that way. Maybe she believed it when she wrote it. Maybe, like most people, she thought gratitude came with an expiration date. Janine tried the same week. Left a voicemail I didn't bother saving. Something about needing closure. Closure is a funny thing. People like her think it's a sit-down over coffee. A handshake. A tidy bow on a pile of broken trust. What they don't understand is that for some of us, closure isn't conversation, it's distance. It's not screaming or cussing or laying out every wound on the table. It's disappearing so cleanly, so completely, that the echo of your absence is louder than your presence ever was. And make no mistake, my absence was echoing hard. A buddy of mine, Joe, who still lives back in town, texted me. "Your ex and her daughter were at the diner today. They looked wrecked." I didn't ask for details, but I could picture it. Janine sitting stiffly, probably still wearing her upper-middle-class modest jewelry. Lily picking at a salad, eyes red and mascara smudged. Like they were both waiting for someone to fix it. Again. Too bad the handyman quit. What I did instead was start writing again. Not letters. Not books. Just a journal. One entry I'll never forget. They didn't lose me at the wedding. They lost me the moment they decided I was replaceable. That's not a one-time mistake. That's a mindset. I started hiking. Trailheads just west of the cabin. Burned through a pair of boots in 2 months. Miles of silence. No reception. No reminders. Just pine and sweat and the rhythmic beat of moving forward. And every now and then, I'd pass a father with his daughter. Laughing. Talking. Sharing trail mix. I'd nod politely. Smile sometimes. But something in my chest would twist. Because the truth was, I loved her. Not Janine. Not the child's version of Lily. But my version of her. The one who used to crawl into my lap with a scraped knee and say, "Don't tell Mom I cried." That version is gone now. Grown into someone I don't know. Someone who forgot what real love looked like when it wasn't dressed in DNA. They always say blood is thicker than water. But they forget the rest of the quote. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. I made a covenant. I showed up. I stayed. And when they broke that covenant with a 5-minute conversation and a rewritten guest list, I let them go. Because love doesn't mean staying. Sometimes it means walking away, so they finally understand what they lost. I got the letter in the mail on a Thursday. No return address. Neat handwriting. No perfume. No glitter. Just paper and ink and a familiar ache pressed between the folds. "Dad," it began. I paused. That word used to mean something. Used to fill my chest with the kind of pride you can't fake. Back when it came after, "I scraped my knee," or "I got the part in the school play," or "Can we stay up and watch one more episode?" But now? Now it was bait. "I know I hurt you. And I know I can't take it back. But I've been thinking about everything. The wedding. The things I said. The choice I made. I thought I wanted closure with my real father. But what I got was chaos." She described how her real father bailed 2 weeks after the ceremony. Disappeared with a borrowed car, a pocket full of cash, and a few $100s from the wedding envelope stash. He left a note that said, "Not ready to be a dad." That's what did it. I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound that filled the cabin. Not ready to be a dad. After 25 years of running, he figured it out now? I flipped the page. "Connor and I are struggling. We've had to move in with Mom for a while. I wish I could talk to you. I miss your advice. Your calm. Your way of fixing things I didn't even know were broken." Fixing things. Yeah, that's what I was. A walking, breathing toolkit for women who couldn't tell the difference between stability and boredom. And now that the one she chose had left a crater, she wanted to build her back. But I wasn't that man anymore. That man died the night she looked me in the eye and said, "He's my real dad." The letter went on. She asked if we could meet. "Somewhere neutral," she wrote, as if we were negotiating a ceasefire between countries at war. And maybe we were. Except in this treaty, I wasn't interested in shaking hands. I didn't respond. Instead, I went into the shed out back, pulled down a heavy old box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were 100 little artifacts of a life I'd lived for them. Her second-grade drawing of my family with me front and center. A photo of us building that crooked science fair volcano. Receipts from ballet, shoes, and orthodontist visits. Birthday cards I'd kept even when they were written in crayon. I held those things like they were fossils. Proof that once, there had been something real. Then I packed them into a sealed bin and labeled it in thick black Sharpie. Do not open. History, not regret. Buried it in the back of the closet. Not the attic, addict's whisper. I wanted this chapter to stay quiet. The next day, Janine called again. Left a voicemail I actually listened to. I just want you to know Lily's really trying. She's not the same girl anymore. Things haven't been easy for her since. Well, since everything fell apart. No mention of what she did. No apology for her own part. Just more damage control. PR in the language of motherhood. I deleted it. I started volunteering at a wildlife rescue center near the ridge. Nothing dramatic, just building fences, cleaning up storm debris, feeding animals. It helped. Hands in the dirt, sweat on my back, and zero small talk. The guy who ran the place, Barry, asked me why I was helping out. I told him, needed something that can be fixed. He nodded, didn't pry. Just handed me a shovel and pointed toward the edge of the woods. That's what I needed. Less words. More rebuilding. Not of them. Of me. I knew it was only a matter of time before they stopped asking for forgiveness and started asking for favors. That's how people like Janine operate. They don't call because they've changed. They call because the walls are closing in. It started with a message on a Tuesday. Middle of the day. I was elbow deep in fence posts at the Wildlife Center, sunburned and half lost in the smell of cedar and fresh soil when my phone buzzed. Hey, it's Janine. Can we talk? It's urgent. I stared at it for a second, then set it back down. Let the bees keep buzzing, the hammer keep swinging. Nothing that came out of her mouth could possibly be more urgent than what I was holding together now. 3 hours later, another text. I wouldn't reach out unless I had to. Please. I should have ignored it. Should have let it rot in the unread pile next to those old voicemails and I miss you messages. But a part of me was curious. Not forgiving. Just watching. Like you slowed down for a car crash, not because you care, but because your brain wants to see just how bad people can mess up. So I called. Her voice came through the speaker, too quick, too bright. Thank you for calling back, she said like I'd done her a favor. What do you need? I asked flatly. No warmth. No familiarity. Just business. She hesitated. It's Lily. She's in a bit of trouble. There it was. The favor. I leaned against the tool bench, grit still under my nails. What kind of trouble? She and Connor, they made some financial decisions that weren't great. Credit cards. A personal loan. One of those, by now, pay later things. It's gotten out of hand. And you think I can fix it? I didn't say that, she said too quickly. She's drowning, and I didn't know who else to call. Her father, she stopped herself. Her biological father isn't answering. I smiled. Cold. Sharp. The kind of smile that only shows up when irony gets too loud to ignore. You mean the man she replaced me with? Silence. Then a soft, forced sigh. I know you're hurt. Hurt was 3 months ago. I cut in. This is something else now. Janine's tone shifted. Desperation creeping in. She still thinks of you as her father. No, I said. She thinks of me as a solution. Just like you do. I let the silence drag. Let it stretch so tight it nearly snapped. Then I added, tell her to call her real dad. You know, the one who walked her down the aisle. The call ended without goodbyes. That night, I poured myself a drink. Sat on the porch. Watched the sun do what people rarely do, go down with grace. The next morning, I got an email. From Lily this time. Subject line. I'm sorry, and I need help. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I spent the afternoon helping Barry reinforce the owl enclosures. There was a barn owl with a busted wing came in during a thunderstorm. Timid little thing. Couldn't fly. Wouldn't eat. Barry said, you'd be surprised how many wild things forget how to survive when they've been caged too long. And something about that stuck. Maybe that's what happened to me. Maybe I'd been caged too long in a life I built for people who only valued it when it made them look good. I finally opened the email that evening. It was long. Too long. That's how you know it's full of excuses. She talked about how hard it's been. About Connor losing his job. About collection calls. About her credit tanking. About how she remembered me teaching her how to balance a checkbook, but she never really listened. I thought I was grown. I thought I could handle everything. But now I realize I was just repeating Mom's mistakes, and I pushed away the only man who ever truly showed up for me. There it was again. Not an apology. A request. I don't want money. I just want to talk. Maybe meet. No pressure. Just coffee. I read it twice. Then I printed it. Folded it once. Placed it in the fire pit. Watched the edges curl, blacken, disappear. Coffee? Sure. They wanted coffee. But me? I was roasting marshmallows over the ashes of everything they tried to salvage too late. She showed up at the cabin. No call. No text. Just the crunch of tires on gravel and the slow roll of a silver sedan that didn't belong to anyone in these woods. I was on the porch, mug in one hand, newspaper in the other. The kind of morning where the air cuts sharp through your lungs and you appreciate silence like it's earned, not owed. Then that damn car door opened, and out stepped Lily. She looked different. Not worse, not better. Just thinner. Tired. Like someone who hadn't been sleeping much. Her hair was tied back the way she used to do when she had exams, or when she was upset and didn't want anyone to notice. Except now, it was plain to see. I didn't move. Just watched. She hesitated near the front step, hands clenched around a too small purse like it could protect her from everything she'd done. Hi, she said, almost a whisper. I took a sip from the mug. You're bold. I'll give you that. She winced. I didn't know what else to do. Not doing anything is always an option, I said, folding the paper with slow precision. You practiced that line in the mirror, or are we going with improv today? She bit her lip. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like old wallpaper peeling in an abandoned room. I didn't come for money, she said finally. I raised an eyebrow. I know what you think. Maybe you're right. Maybe I treated you like some kind of backup plan. But you were never that to me. I messed up. Messed up? I echoed. That's what we're calling it? She took a breath, then sat down on the bottom porch step like she used to as a kid. Except this time, she kept her distance. Like she knew the porch didn't belong to her anymore. I was trying to connect with him, she said. I thought maybe if he walked me down the aisle, it would fix something inside me. But it didn't. It broke everything else instead. Now that line hit different. She looked up at me, eyes rimmed red, but not crying. I could see the version of her I used to know, behind the wreckage, the shame. Buried, but flickering. I miss you, she said simply. I stayed quiet. You were always there. Every recital. Every meltdown. Every time I failed a test or got dumped or wrecked my car. It was you. And I traded that for a 5-minute photo op with a man who never even learned my middle name. I stood up then. Not because I was angry, but because sitting felt like permission. And she didn't deserve that yet. Do you remember what I told you the night before prom? I asked. She blinked. That Connor wasn't good enough for me. No, I said. I said you don't get to rewrite your past, but you damn sure get to choose your future. And you made a choice. Now you've got to live with it. I know, she said, eyes falling to the wooden steps. I didn't come to beg, she added. I just wanted to say it to your face. What I did. What I lost. I nodded once. That's good, I said. You said it. Now go. She looked up, startled. Just like that. You expected what? An embrace? A Hallmark ending? No, Lily. You gave that man my place. You let him step where I stood for years. You wanted him in your photos, not me. Well, now he's in them. Forever. Enjoy the view. Her mouth trembled, but no words came out. I pointed to the car. I've got fences to finish. You've got a long road back to wherever it is you call home now. She stood, wavered, then nodded. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't answer. She got in the car, backed down the drive, and disappeared in a cloud of dust. I watched until the silence returned. Then I walked around back, grabbed my shovel, and kept digging the post holes I'd started before she arrived. The sun came up higher. The birds didn't care. And I felt something settle in me. Not peace. Not closure. Just clarity. She thought driving to my doorstep and saying sorry would flip a switch. What she didn't understand. I didn't build this place for apologies. I built it for after. 2 weeks passed before the knock came. Not a gentle knock either. Not the kind you offer when you're unsure if you're welcome. No, this one had weight. Intention. Like someone pounding on a locked door, convinced persistence would grant them entry. I opened it. There she was. Janine. My ex-wife. Same manicured nails. Same overconfident posture. Same perfume, only this time, it smelled more like desperation. Hey, she said, like we were old friends instead of a fire she lit and left to burn. I didn't respond. Just stepped aside enough to make it clear she wasn't invited in. She took the hint. Stayed on the porch, eyes scanning the place like she was trying to piece together the man I'd become. But all that old charm she used to weaponize, it didn't reach me anymore. That cord had been cut. I know Lily came by, she started. I leaned on the frame. And she told me what you said, that you didn't want anything to do with us anymore. That's not what I said, I replied. I said she made a choice. I made mine. Now we both live with them. She nodded slowly, like she was rehearsing her next line. Then came the pitch. I think we made a mistake, she said. We. She always used we like it softened the blow. Like if she diluted the guilt enough, I'd be willing to drink it down again. I think we got caught up in the idea of what Lily needed. That she needed closure. Her father. That piece of the puzzle. I folded my arms. And what did I need? Janine. Did that ever cross your mind? Or was I just a tool you used until something shinier came along? Her eyes dropped. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. You didn't want to hurt me? I laughed once. Dry. You stood by and watched your daughter replace me in the most public, humiliating way possible. And not only did you not stop it, you defended it. Don't sell me revisionist history just because the ending turned out sour. Janine's voice cracked. You were the best thing that ever happened to both of us. You know that, right? No, I said calmly. But I do know this. Being the best thing doesn't mean you'll be chosen. It just means you'll be missed once you're gone. Her lip trembled. I'm not here to beg, she said. Good, I answered. Because I don't do mercy reunions. There was a long pause. The wind picked up a little, rustling the pine needles behind the cabin. A squirrel darted across the gravel. Nature didn't care one bit about human regret. Then Janine played her final card. I'm selling the house, she said. I shrugged. Not my house. It was yours too. Was, I echoed. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Placed it on the porch rail like she was laying down a peace offering. What's that? Lily's college refund check, she said. She dropped out. Couldn't afford to finish. It was under your name since you co-signed her loans. I thought you should know. She didn't ask if I'd cash it. Didn't ask if I'd use it to help. Just stood there, eyes hopeful and hollow all at once. I didn't touch the envelope. Take it with you, I said. She's lost, you know, Janine added, voice small now. Really lost. She was found once, I said, looking her dead in the eye. And she threw it away for a photo op. Janine's shoulders slumped. The war was over. She knew it. She turned to leave, her heels crunching the gravel one last time. But before she reached the car, I called out. You raised a daughter who didn't understand loyalty because she never saw it modeled. You were so busy chasing the next chapter, you forgot to honor the ones already written. She turned. I loved you, she said. No, I said. You loved what I did for you. Big difference. She didn't reply. Just opened the door, got in, and drove away. I stood there until the taillights disappeared into the trees. Then I picked up the envelope, walked it to the fire pit, and watched another piece of their fallout turn to ash. Not because I hated them, because I finally loved me more. The irony? It started with the envelope I burned. 2 weeks later, a letter showed up. This one wasn't from Janine, not from Lily. No perfume, no guilt woven into the folds. It was from a name I didn't recognize. Elena Morgan. Director, Foster Futures of Pine Hollow. I almost tossed it. Figured it was junk. Some brochure asking for donations or volunteers. But something made me open it. Inside was a letter, handwritten, not printed. That alone gave it weight. Mr. Walker. I hope this reaches you well. My name is Elena Morgan. I run a transitional home for young men who've aged out of the foster system. One of our residents, Kellen, recently completed his GED and is considering a trade school nearby. What caught my attention, and why I'm reaching out, is that Kellen listed you as an emergency contact. When I asked him how he knew you, he said, I don't. But the man who built that cabin told me once, if you ever get stuck in life, look me up. My name's Walker, and I don't abandon people who don't have anyone. I sat down. Hard. The name came rushing back, Kellen. Tall kid. 17 when I met him. He'd been doing odd jobs through a community center outreach program. Helped me clear brush the first summer I moved to the cabin. We didn't talk much. But he asked questions about tools, about carpentry, about how to tell pine from spruce. And one day, when the rain trapped us under the shed roof, he asked me what it felt like to have a real family. That night, I gave him a sandwich and a ride back to town. Wrote my number on the inside flap of a matchbook and told him, if it gets dark out there, call. I don't promise miracles, but I'll answer. I never expected he'd remember. But he had. And now I had a choice. I thought about Lily. About the thousands I'd spent on her braces, school, car, The wedding dress she wore while choosing another man to call dad. I thought about Janine and the years I gave her while she played chess with my loyalty. And now, some stranger was at my door, not asking for help out of guilt, but because I'd once offered it with nothing expected in return. So I drove into Pine Hollow. Found the house. Modest place tucked behind a shuttered middle school. A swing creaked in the breeze. There was laundry drying out front on a court. A real home, even if it didn't look like much. Elena answered the door with tired eyes and a calm smile. You came, she said. No surprise in her voice. Just a simple recognition. I said I would, I replied. She nodded toward the porch swing. He's out back. Fixing the fence. Kellen hadn't changed much. Taller. Thinner. But still moved with that careful energy like someone always watching the exits. When he turned and saw me, he froze. I wasn't sure you'd actually come, he said. I shrugged. Neither was I. We talked. Not about feelings. Not yet. About tools. About what it costs to live alone. About trade schools. HVAC certification. Plumbing licenses. Things he could do with his hands that didn't require a resume written in perfect grammar. Then he asked, quietly, did you mean it back then? That you don't abandon people? I looked him in the eye. I meant it more now than I did then. So I did something I never expected I would again. I wrote a check. Not a bailout. Not a bribe. A start. Trade school tuition, 1 semester. The rest would be up to him. You earned the second one, I said. Not with grades. With grit. You show up. You try. You stay clean. You fail. And you keep going. He nodded. No tears. Just something in his jaw said hard, like a boy who hadn't had someone believe in him in a long time. On the drive home, the cabin looked different. Still quiet. Still mine. But no longer just a shelter. Now it was a forge. She found out, of course. I don't know who told her. Could have been one of the old neighbors. Could have been Lily, maybe still watching from a distance she swore she respected. Or maybe the universe just couldn't help but throw her a peek at the man I was becoming without her. Either way, the message came in mid-afternoon. Janine, so I hear you've got yourself a new project? That word, project, set something off in me. Like this boy, this life I chose to support was just some broken lawnmower I dragged out of a garage to tinker with. I didn't respond. She tried again 2 hours later. Janine, really? A stranger gets your help, but your own daughter didn't deserve a second chance? There it was. The real wound. The jealousy she was too proud to admit. Not because she wanted me back, but because she hated that I'd moved on, with purpose. That I'd found someone more honest to pour into. That I hadn't crumbled like she expected. She thought I'd stay bitter. Stay stuck. But I was building again. Quietly. Without fanfare. And it infuriated her. I replied with one line. He didn't ask to walk anyone down the aisle. He just picked up a hammer and got to work. No response. Until the next morning. She called. I stared at the screen. Let it ring twice before I answered. Her voice came soft. Measured. That old tone she used when she was testing how far she could push. I just think it's telling, she said, that you could give money and mentorship to a boy you barely know, but not extend the same grace to the girl who called you dad for over a decade. I leaned back in my chair. Janine, I said, you want to talk grace? She was quiet. Let's talk about the night your daughter handed my seat at the head of the aisle to a man who hadn't shown up since she lost her first tooth. Let's talk about how you stood beside her and told me it was about closure. And now, because someone else got what you squandered, you're back to play PR manager for your past. She sighed. People make mistakes. Yeah, and some people pay for them, I said. But you? You want to skip the consequences and jump straight to redemption. Sorry, that's not how this works anymore. I thought you were better than this. Better than what? Boundaries. She went quiet again. But this time, it wasn't calculated. It was real. Like the sound of someone who just realized the old trick stopped working. You're changing, she said, almost to herself. No, I said. I'm returning. This is who I was before I lost myself and fixing everything for people who only knew how to take. You're mentoring that boy like he's your son. He's earning it like one, I replied. Click. She ended the call. No fireworks. No threats. Just silence. The sound of a woman realizing the door she used to keep her foot in had finally shut, latched, and bolted. Later that day, Kellen showed up with a set of prints for a treehouse he wanted to build at the edge of the shelter's property. No one asked for it, he said. But I figured, maybe the next kid could use something solid. You know, somewhere to breathe. I looked at the lines, the angles, the rough pencil markings. They weren't perfect, but they had heart. You're building more than a treehouse, I said. He didn't get it yet, but he would. Because that's the thing about legacy, it's not about blood. It's about impact. And the woman who tried to rewrite history with apologies and backhanded texts, she'd spend her days trying to erase the image of me handing down my tools to a stranger, while her own daughter kept dialing a number that never picked up. The letter came in a plain white envelope. No stamp. No return address. She must have driven it out herself and dropped it in my box. Lily. I sat on the porch for an hour before I opened it. Just held it. The weight of it felt different this time. Not like her earlier attempts, where every word reeked of guilt with an invoice attached. This one felt raw. Inside were 3 pages. No preamble. No excuses. Just this. You were my father. I see that now. Not the man who walked me down the aisle. Not the one who left before the honeymoon was over. You. You were there when I got my first period and didn't want to tell Mom. You were there when I got suspended for skipping class and couldn't face her. You stayed through every version of me, even the ones that were hard to love. And then I threw you away like a wedding favor. That line hit like a body blow. She went on. Talked about how Janine tried to put a bow on the situation. How she told Lily to give it time, and he'll come around. But Lily knew better now. You always taught me that love isn't proven in words. It's proven in presence. I realize now that by choosing someone else for that moment, I chose absence over legacy. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. I just wanted you to know I remember everything. Every birthday you made special. Every time you stood up for me. Every Sunday morning pancakes and your awful dad jokes. You weren't my blood, but you were my bones. And I miss you, even if I don't deserve to. I didn't cry. I just sat there, reading that line over and over. You weren't my blood, but you were my bones. That's when I pulled out my own letter. The one I'd been writing, not for her. For Kellen. He didn't know it yet, but I'd opened a savings account in his name. It wasn't a trust fund, nothing dramatic. Just enough to put some weight behind the kind of start no one ever gave me. The letter wasn't poetic. It didn't have metaphors or long-winded emotion. Just truth. Life doesn't reward perfect people. It rewards persistent ones. I'm not investing in you because I pity you. I'm investing because you showed up when no one told you to. That's what men do. They show up. They stay. They build. Don't become a version of the men who walked away from you. Become the man who walks toward what's hard and stays there long enough to matter. I sealed it. That night, I sat by the fire, both letters beside me. One from the girl I used to raise, and one for the man I was helping to become. And you know what I realized? One was filled with memories. The other with momentum. Lily's letter was sincere, maybe even redemptive, but it was the voice of someone looking backward, finally seeing the wreckage she'd left behind. Kellen's? He wasn't looking back. He was reaching forward, and if I had to choose where to pour the rest of my years, into what was lost or into what still had roots, I'd plant where the ground was ready. We built it together. The deck out back, rough-hewn pine, sealed twice over, edges sanded until even the wind couldn't splinter it. Kellen and I worked through spring to finish it. He wanted a place for the others at Foster Futures to come, celebrate milestones, and see what could be done with 2 hands and a little belief. This was the first test. A small barbecue. Nothing flashy. Burgers, soda, a Bluetooth speaker playing classic rock. Some of the boys from the center came up. One girl, too, new, sharp-witted, kept her sleeves tugged over the scars on her arms. And Kellen? He hosted. Grill tongs in hand, apron crooked, face flushed with a kind of pride I hadn't seen in him since he passed his HVAC certification last month. The kid had earned something rare, respect for himself. Around dusk, I stepped inside to grab more charcoal. When I came back, everything changed. She was there. Lily, leaning against her old sedan at the edge of the gravel. She hadn't stepped up yet. Just stood there, watching. Arms folded. Like she didn't know if she was allowed past the line where the trees opened and the life she forfeited began. She caught my eye. Gave a small wave. Nothing pushy. Just present. I walked down the steps. You here for the burgers? I asked, flatly. I heard about Kellen's celebration, she said. From Mom. Of course. Janine couldn't help herself. Gossip was her love language. Lily looked different. Again, there was a tired grace to her. No makeup. No flashy accessories. Just jeans and a worn college sweatshirt from a school she never finished. She glanced at the cabin, then at the fire pit where Kellen stood laughing with 2 other kids, like he belonged. He's lucky, she said. No, I replied. He's earned. She nodded. I know I wasn't the kind of daughter who made that easy. I didn't answer. She shifted on her heels. I brought something, she said, reaching into the car. A wrapped box. Neat, but simple. I opened it. A photo. The three of us, me, her, Janine. From back when Lily had braces and pigtails and still called me daddy without hesitation. We were at a pumpkin patch. My arms were around them both. I remembered the day. Below the photo, a handwritten note on stiff cardstock. Thank you for giving me a childhood I was too young to appreciate, and a man I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve. L? It was the first time I'd seen my name reduced to an initial, and for some reason, that hit harder than anything she could have written. I don't expect to be part of this, she said, glancing again toward the cabin. I just wanted you to know. I'm glad someone else got a chance. I looked down at the photo, then up at the woman standing on the edge of what used to be ours. You want honesty? I asked. She met my eyes. You were the blueprint. All my best lessons, I learned from loving you wrong. And now I get to teach someone else how to love himself right. She swallowed hard. That's fair. I'm not angry anymore, Lily, I said. But don't mistake peace for permission. She nodded, slowly. Got it. And she turned. Quietly. No drama. No hug. Just walked back to the car, climbed in, and drove off. I went back up to the cabin. Kellen was finishing up the last of the burgers. The girl with the sleeves pulled over her hands was helping him plate. They smiled when they saw me. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, I said, voice steady. Just ghosts. They come and go. He handed me a plate. You want the last one? I took it. Sat on the new deck. Watched the trees sway. No headlines. No confrontation. Just a woman learning that closure doesn't always come with a key to the place she locked herself out of. And a man who finally stopped waiting at the door. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. Elbows planted, fingers laced, a folded sheet of paper between us like a silent bomb waiting to be defused. Kellen. Nervous in a way I hadn't seen since his first trade exam. But it wasn't fear of failure in his eyes. It was the fear of leaving something that finally felt like home. I got an offer, he said. I didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Just waited. He unfolded the paper. It's from a crew in Montana. Renewable energy outfit. They're building wind systems and retrofitting old grid lines in reservation land. They want me. Full-time. Real pay. Travel. Lodging. Everything. I nodded once. That's good. It's out there, he said. Like, out there. I've seen the map. He chuckled, but there wasn't joy in it. Just tension dressed in humor. I guess what I'm asking is, he hesitated. What would you do? I leaned back. Thought for a second. I'd go, I said. He blinked. Just like that. No, not just like that. But I'd still go. Even if it meant leaving this? I looked around the cabin. The tools. The deck. The chair by the fire I carved his initials into one night when he wasn't looking. Kellen, I said, this place isn't a finish line. It's a launch pad. He was quiet for a long time. I'm scared, he finally said. Good, I replied. Means it matters. He looked at me like he was trying to memorize my face. Or maybe just the sound of someone who'd never once walked out on him. I'm not good at goodbyes. Neither am I said. That's why we don't say them. He nodded slowly, then reached into his jacket pocket. Pulled out the old matchbook. The one I gave him when he was 17. I never lost it, he said. That hit me harder than I expected. He placed it on the table. Thought maybe someone else could use it now. I closed it gently, then slid it back to him. No, I said. You hold on to it. Not for you. For whoever's next. Because this wasn't about me being the answer. It was about teaching someone else how to be one. He left 2 days later. No fanfare. Just a duffel bag, a borrowed truck from Foster Futures, and a fist bump that meant more than any speech. I stood on the porch as he drove off into the morning. Felt something in my chest loosen, not break, not shatter, loosen. Like something that had been wrapped tight for years was finally ready to exhale. That night, I opened a fresh notebook. On the first page, I wrote, Kellen left. And this time, someone left without taking anything from me. In fact, he left something behind. Faith. In myself. In second chances. In boys who become men not by birthright, but by choice. I slept well that night. Didn't dream of Janine. Didn't think of Lily. Didn't hear the echo of the aisle that never saw my steps. Because now, I was someone's origin story.